There are moments in life when a single truth changes everything you believed about a person. Today, that truth came from someone the world once saw as unstoppable. A man who chased danger for a living, but hid his own battles in silence. For decades, people thought his toughness came naturally. But the real story was far darker than the sunglasses and the swagger. Behind the cameras, behind the hunt, his world was slowly collapsing. Not in one moment, but piece by piece, heartbreak by heartbreak. Every loss carved a deeper scar, every betrayal cut a little further. And now, for the first time, he allowed the world into the pain he carried. Pain that almost destroyed the man known as Dog the Bounty Hunter. His story doesn't begin with fame or money. It begins on the rough streets of Denver, where survival was learned early. He grew up around chaos, uncertainty, and a constant fear of what came next. Home never felt like a place of safety, only a place of noise and trouble. At an age when most kids were learning how to dream, he was learning how to fight. He learned to stay alert, to move fast, to never show weakness. It was a childhood that shaped him more than he ever admitted. A childhood that taught him pain long before the world knew his name. Looking back, he realized the battles he fought as a boy never really ended. They just changed their faces as he grew older. In his teens, he slipped deeper into a world he thought he understood. Wrong friends, bad choices, and a path that seemed impossible to escape. One decision changed everything, one moment he could never take back. He found himself in the middle of a crime he didn't commit directly. But he was there, and that was enough for the law. The punishment was harsh, heavier than he expected. Prison became his reality before he ever learned how to save himself. Those walls taught him more about fear than the streets ever had. And in that darkness, he promised himself he would rise somehow. But promises don't erase the past, they only mark the start of a fight. When he finally walked out of prison, he wasn't the same person. He carried a shadow inside him, a reminder of everything he wanted to outrun. But he also carried something new, determination. Instead of falling back into old habits, he searched for a way to change. And that's when he found the world of bounty hunting. It wasn't glamorous, and it didn't pay much at first. But it gave him purpose, structure, and a chance at redemption. The job demanded courage, speed, and a strong will, things he had learned young. For once, his past became a strength instead of a curse. And step by step, the legend began to form. He became famous for his energy, his instinct, and his fearlessness. People watched him kick down doors, chase fugitives, and bring justice home. Every episode made him look larger than life. But behind the scenes, he was carrying more than the audience ever saw. The pressure to stay strong, to stay in control, never stopped. Cameras expected entertainment, not exhaustion. Viewers saw success, not the stress that built up day after day. He learned to smile even when he was breaking inside. He learned to run even when he could barely stand. And the world believed the mask he wore without question. His personal life was a storm he couldn't run from. Multiple marriages, broken promises, and relationships torn apart by fame. Every time he thought he found stability, something shattered again. People he trusted turned against him when he needed them most. His family faced struggles the public never heard about. Late-night arguments, financial pressure, and emotional wounds. The tougher he appeared on television, the more fragile he felt at home. He tried to hold the pieces together, but they slipped through his hands. He didn't admit it then, but he was slowly drowning. And the world kept cheering as if nothing was wrong. The biggest blow of his life came from the person he loved most. Bate was not just his partner, she was his anchor, his shield, his strength. She saw the parts of him he never shared with anyone. She understood his anger, his fear, his broken past. and she loved him through every scar, every mistake, every failure. When she got sick, the world prayed, but he panicked. He tried to stay strong for her, but inside he was terrified. Watching her fight was like watching his world split open. Every hospital visit felt like another chapter closing. He wasn't ready to lose her, but life didn't care. The day she died, something inside him died too. He talked about the moment years later, voice shaking, eyes empty. He said it felt like someone unplugged the sun from his life. He walked into the house they shared and felt the silence crush him. Every room reminded him of her laugh, her voice, her touch. He tried to work again, tried to return to the show. But nothing felt real, nothing felt worth fighting for. Fans saw a man still standing, but he knew better. He wasn't standing, he was surviving. And some days, even that felt impossible. After Bates' death, he found himself spiraling deeper into loneliness. Fame didn't comfort him. Cameras didn't fill the empty space in his heart. People expected him to recover quickly, to be the tough guy again. But grief doesn't obey schedules. He lost sleep, lost weight, lost interest in everything he once loved. Friends said he looked like a ghost of himself. He avoided mirrors because he didn't recognize the man staring back. He started pushing people away without realizing it. He believed the world had taken the only person who understood him. And for a long time, he believed he didn't deserve happiness anymore. His health began to crumble under the weight of stress. Doctors warned him about his heart, about his blood pressure, about his lifestyle. But he brushed it off, telling himself he was stronger than pain. Until one day, his body proved him wrong. He collapsed without warning, terrifying everyone around him. Tests revealed conditions he didn't want to accept. He was forced to face the truth. He wasn't unbeatable. Years of chasing danger had caught up to him. He realized he had spent his life saving others, but never himself. And now his past was demanding payment. Addiction crept into his life quietly, like a shadow he didn't notice. It began with pills for pain, then pills for sleep, then pills for stress. He didn't call it addiction, he called it survival. But survival quickly turned into dependency. Days blurred together, and he felt himself slipping further from reality. He hid the struggle from the world, ashamed of the weakness he felt. He knew what addiction looked like on other people. He never imagined he'd see it in his own reflection. And for the first time in years, he felt genuinely afraid. Not of criminals, but of himself. One night he reached rock bottom. No cameras, no fans. No team, just silence. He stared at the empty space where Bate once sat and broke down completely. Years of grief, stress, guilt, and exhaustion poured out of him. He admitted to himself that he needed help. He admitted that he wasn't the hero people believed he was. That moment of honesty saved his life. Because admitting pain is the first step to healing it. And for the first time in a long time, he felt a tiny spark of hope. Small, but enough to start climbing back up. Therapy became the doorway he never thought he'd walk through. He sat across from someone who didn't want a photo, a signature, or a story. Someone who wanted the truth, not the legend. He talked about childhood, prison, fame, and loss. He talked about guilt, the guilt of surviving when others didn't. Piece by piece, he began to understand the weight he carried. The therapist told him something he never forgot. You can't outhunt your own pain. Those words hit him like a hammer. Because he finally knew it was true. Slowly, he started changing his life. He cut off toxic relationships that drained him. He reduced his workload and focused on breathing again. He learned how to process grief instead of running from it. He reconnected with family, repaired broken bonds, and found support. Every step forward felt like climbing a mountain. But he kept climbing because he wasn't ready to quit. He wanted to honor Bates' memory, not run from it. He wanted to live a life she'd be proud of. And that goal became his new strength. As he healed, something surprising happened. He found love again, something he never expected. He felt guilty at first, as if moving forward meant forgetting the past. But he realized love doesn't replace love, it adds to it. He learned that hearts can break and still beat again. The world judged him, criticized him, questioned him. But he understood that healing looks different for everyone. And for the first time in years, he allowed himself to feel joy. Even if it scared him. Even if the world didn't understand. He returned to work with a new perspective. The job wasn't about fame anymore. It was about purpose. He used his past mistakes to guide others away from theirs. He spoke openly about addiction, grief, and recovery. People listened in a way they never had before. Because this time, he wasn't acting strong, he was being honest. Fans saw a deeper version of him, one they hadn't witnessed on TV. A version that was flawed, human, and relatable. He stopped pretending to be unbreakable. And that honesty made him stronger. But with the return came new challenges he didn't expect. The industry had changed, audiences had changed, and so had he. He struggled to adapt to a digital world that moved too fast. Younger bounty hunters were rising, creating new competition. Shows were canceled, contracts ended, and opportunities faded. He felt himself drifting from the fame he once dominated. But he reminded himself that he didn't need validation anymore. He didn't need to be the biggest name on television. He just needed to be present, healthy, and stable. And that became enough for him. Still, some days were harder than others. There were moments when grief hit him without warning. A photograph, a memory, a song, and suddenly he was back in that hospital room. He learned that healing isn't a straight line. Some days you move forward, some days you fall back. But what mattered was that he kept getting up. He didn't let sadness swallow him the way it once did. He stopped punishing himself for surviving. He started appreciating the chance to live again. Even when it hurt. Financial struggles began creeping in quietly. Years of legal battles, medical bills, and canceled shows took their toll. He admitted he wasn't prepared for life after peak fame. He made mistakes, trusted the wrong people, and lost money he thought was safe. Rumors spread online, some true, many exaggerated. He faced embarrassment, criticism, and public judgment. But instead of hiding, he addressed it directly. He said money comes and goes, but life doesn't. He refused to let financial loss define him. He focused on rebuilding instead of regretting. His children became his anchor during these difficult years. They reminded him what mattered beyond cameras and headlines. Family dinners replaced long nights on the road. Conversations replaced chaos. He apologized for the years he spent emotionally absent. He acknowledged the mistakes he made as a father. And they forgave him because they saw the effort he made to change. Those relationships became his greatest success story. Not the arrests, not the fame, not the show, but the family he finally learned to protect. As he entered his later years, he began reflecting more on life. He thought about the journey from broken boy to broken man to survivor. He realized pain had shaped him, but it didn't have to control him. He understood that strength isn't about chasing criminals. It's about facing yourself when no one is watching. He learned that happiness comes in small, quiet moments. Not in fame, not in applause, not in adrenaline. He accepted that his legacy wouldn't be perfect, but it would be honest. And that was enough. One day, he sat down for an interview and spoke without filters. He revealed truths he had hidden for decades. He talked about fear, insecurity, heartbreak, and regret. He talked about loving deeply and losing painfully. He talked about mistakes he wished he could take back. Fans were shocked, not by the stories, but by his vulnerability. This was Dog the Bounty Hunter, the TV character. This was Dwayne Chapman, the human being. A man with scars instead of armor. And the honesty made people love him even more. He said something that left the room silent. Everyone thinks I'm tough, but I spent most of my life scared. Not scared of criminals, scared of losing people. Scared of being alone. Scared of failing the ones he loved. He admitted that the toughest man on TV was often the weakest inside. He said he built his image to protect himself from the world. And then the world took bait and the shield cracked. He realized vulnerability isn't weakness, it's truth. And truth is what finally set him free. Now he lives differently. Quieter, slower, and with more gratitude. He wakes up thankful instead of angry. He spends time with family instead of chasing chaos. He chooses peace over pride, rest over pressure. His story isn't perfect, it was never meant to be. But it's real, raw, and human. And for the first time, he's proud of the man he's becoming. Not the bounty hunter, but the survivor. This is the truth he finally shared with the world. A truth that shows the man behind the legend, behind the sunglasses, behind the myth. A man who lost everything and still found a way to rise. A man who broke, healed, and learned to live again. His journey reminds us that no one is unbreakable. Not heroes, not icons, not television giants. Everyone carries battles the world can't see. But survival isn't about being fearless. It's about moving forward anyway. And that's what makes